I'm like, how sad. Still stealing everybody else's words, but whatever. We don't hear hardly anything about it unless you know where to go look. But you should look it up and watch it. They'd have been all over another certain president about how unpresidential that would be to blame the Coast Guard for the class not getting the joke. See, I don't blame you folks for not getting the jokes. I know they're bad jokes. I know I don't always tell them very well. I know the problem is me. It's like the mailman. It's all in the delivery, right? That's the best one, you see. Yeah, that's an oldie. I've told that one before, though, you see. So you don't blame your audience. You don't. All right. Um, so the First Thessalonians, I went somewhere else. Let me turn over and catch up with you. Maybe I'm just in a bad mood this morning. I haven't had any peanut butter today. I know that. So. All right. Did everybody have a good week? Everybody enjoy the sunshine we had? All right, good, good. All right. So as we were talking about with the consummation, our last C there, and then we're going to touch a little bit this morning on. We're going to go back and talk more about creation. We're going to do a series of things on creation and talking about some things there. But as we talked about the final C, we talked about the timing of that is we don't, it's a thing yet to happen. Okay, there are things that are happening along the way here that we understand are pointing to the consummation, pointing to the end times. We know, as we've said, that the return of Jesus Christ is imminent. It doesn't mean it's going to happen within our lifetime, even our lifetime, but it means it could happen. I mean, everything has been set, everything is there. Um, Boy, just like I say, looking around the world and looking at how things happen, looking at how the news. I mean, you can hear any bit of news from anywhere in the world. Just look at what's going on over in Israel and how much people are, just really down on Israel for defending themselves against attacks that are coming in that way. Um, to have, I got to be careful. I really do because I think I am in a bad mood this morning. I don't know why. But to have a camera set up on a building that's going to be bombed and tell them how bad it is because they bombed this building, that Israel bombed this building, but they knew where to put the camera because they told them 2 hours in advance, you better get everybody out of that building because we know it's a Hamas stronghold. And the AP journalists were in that building with him. They have the same headquarters. All those things happen, and they knew exactly where to put that camera, and that's the picture they show. That's the side of the war you're hearing over there. Either way, these things are all happening in this world, and we know because the Bible tells us that those kind of things are going to happen. That the world is going to rise up against Israel. That's what's going to happen. We better be on the right side of that war. We better be on the right side of that idea. So. So all this stuff is yet to happen, but we can see the stuff that's happening. It's not historical in that we can go back and read about what happened, but we have God's account on what's going to happen. It's historical because if we believe everything that came before it, if we believe all the other 6 C's that came before it, if we believe in the beginning with the creation, we can believe the consummation in the end. That this was His account of what's going to happen. And so it's not historical in the account, except that we believe it's going to happen the way God said it's going to happen. And so there are many things recorded in Matthew chapter 24. There's a good old song that I like to sing. I believe the good old Bible from beginning to the end, and then it goes on to say about all those things that will happen in Matthew 24. That's the name of the song. Revelation tells us so many things there, and so it's a written warning. God did not want anybody to be caught off guard by any of this. I mean, if you don't believe in the beginning, and if you don't believe that there was all the things we've been studying through here, if you don't believe there was a Savior, that there was a Christ, if you don't believe that there is a cross, if you don't believe that salvation is full and free to anyone who will accept it, if you don't believe that, he says, well, this is the end of man. This is the end of where people will be. This is how I'm ending things, and you better be ready, or you're at least warned about what's going to happen. His return will soon come, and it says here let's look at 1 Thessalonians 5. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. You know, if you travel away, or you do different things, if you ever had anybody break into your house, if you ever had anything stolen from you, the thieves do like to do that in the night. They like to have that cover of darkness. They like to have that, and so it's a time when you're realizing that you put your head on the pillow. I don't care who you are. I think I've mentioned this in here a long time ago, that, you know, people, they've done different studies with different people. People have tried to stay awake forever. They say, I'm never going to sleep again. And they can go about a week before your brain just completely shuts down. And there have been people, there was a story I read a long time ago about, I think it was a disc jockey who tried to stay on the air for like a week straight, and it killed him. I've heard other stories where the Germans did that to people, primarily the Jews. They did that to them. They forced them to stay awake, and by the end of a week, their brains were mush. You just can't stay awake. And at some point, you got to stop, and you got to put your head down on a pillow, and you got to go to sleep. There are a lot of people not getting enough sleep. Maybe that's my problem this morning. I don't know. I feel like I get a good night's rest, but either way, but there are people who are just walking around. They're walking around asleep because they're just not getting sleep, and they function this way. And it's amazing. You see those people, and you're driving beside them, and they stop at a stop sign, and they next thing you know, they nod off, and the stories happen like that, But there are people that are just not getting enough sleep. But the thing is, you have to go to sleep at some point. And when you go to sleep, that child's prayer, now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. But the thing is, not maybe entirely biblical there, but the fact is, when we put our heads down on the pillow at night, we're very vulnerable. My wife and I don't take turns keeping watch over the house at night. Okay, you take the first shift, hun, I'll take the second shift, and because she probably wouldn't be able to wake me up at some point to get up and take my shift. It's just the way it would go. But the fact is, we lock our doors. We have everything as secure as we can. And we figure, okay, hopefully if somebody tries to break in, we'll hear some type of a noise. How many people have heard that noise and sat there and thought, well, I didn't hear another noise, so I don't think it's a thief breaking in. You roll over and go back to sleep. How many people have done that? It must have been just something rolled off the shelf somewhere, or something happened. I've done that myself. But the fact is, what it comes down to, it's a place where you're not aware. It's a place where you don't expect it to happen. You're not keeping watch. That's what he's talking about here. When he comes, it'll be as a thief in the night. There'll be nobody really expecting it. And I'll say, as Christians, we've been put into a sleep where we're not really watching, we're not really expecting, and there are gonna be many Christians who are caught off guard that when Jesus Christ returns, and that his coming is as a thief in the night. And in verse 3, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So as we see here in verse 3, when it talks about when they talk peace and safety, and boy, that's the other thing that's going to happen. You can see things being laid out. We're being connected together as a world. This whole virus situation, everything goes on here. All this stuff is really working to put the world there. This is connected all over the world. You see if you see any of the stories that are coming out of India, just terrible tragedies over there, and probably grossly underreported what's happening over in India. But the fact is, if we didn't have those news stories, we wouldn't necessarily know. I'll tell this story. It's not trying to be tear-jerking in any way. Just an odd thing to have happen here. But one of the stories I read out of there was the people who die, and they've moved. They're not in their original province or whatever. they would take them back to their province. Okay, well, so they have the burning ceremony of the body and everything that way. And there was one story of there's just nobody to take these bodies back to. I think you can appreciate this, Brother Bill, with the funeral homes and such. But they had nobody to take the body. So this mother died. I think she was in her 50s, and her two boys put her on a motorcycle between the two of them. The three of them rode, I forget how many hundreds of miles. I want to say it was like three to 500 miles they rode with their dead mother between them to get her back to her province so they could burn the body. And you wouldn't have heard about that if it weren't for the news stories coming out. And so we're all so connected with this news that we can get if you know where to look and if you trip across certain things. But just terrible tragedy that way. But the fact is, all this stuff is putting it together, and so when there's going to come a time that it's all going to be orchestrated. The devil's got his crew, and he's working on things, and boy, they're going to promise us peace, and they're going to promise us safety, and they're going to have their hand on everything. I don't mean to be down here this morning. This is good news for us, because as we see these things happen, and we know that the Lord's soon return is upon us. But there's going to be a lot of bad things happen before the good happens. And so as the world gets their act together, but they get everything falling into place there, they're going to be able to promise peace and safety. But then that's when sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. God's judgment's going to come down on this world at that time. As I've said it before about the woman's travail, the fact is, we've been watching this lady get pregnant for a long time, and I know that as I've said it in here many times, 40 years ago, there's no way I would have ever said, about time I started paying attention to things, just a young teenager at that point. But 40 years ago, there's no way we'd have been able to put things together like it has been put together today. And some of you older folks in here kind of know. Some of the younger folks may not necessarily be able to see it, but it's coming along. It really is. Just as God has laid it out in His book here. He put it all together. He sees the beginning from the end from the beginning. He knows what's going to happen, and so it's no surprise to Him. But as that lady's pregnant there, and you just don't know what time it's going to happen. That it's going to be time to deliver, and so as we see here that the destruction will come upon them as travail upon a woman with child. And so keep that in mind there. No time marked on the calendars, not on our calendar for the event. We can't go back like we did in all the other times we talked about, the years that the different things happened, the creation, when it was believed to have happened, when the corruption occurred, when the chaos, the catastrophe, those are all marked in our history. Those can be pretty much marked in our history as when we believe they happen. And so as we see this, it's not going to be a date we can mark on our calendar today, because as soon as you mark it on the calendar, then you're pretty much a heretic, because the Bible says no man knoweth the hour nor the day. We just know that God the Father Himself knows the timing, and He knows what the next step is, and He's what the next event is, and when He's ready there. The picture of, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in future lessons a little more, but the whole point, the whole thing with the Jewish wedding was just amazing, in that the bride and the groom were betrothed to each other, and the groom would go and he would go and build the place where his bride would live. And when the father felt that things were all ready and everything taken care of, he'd say, "Son, go get your bride." And that's when he'd go get her and bring her to his place, and that's when they would be fully married. So when they went through with that, and so God's sitting up there, and he said, "Son, you're building." I mean, it's amazing to me that as heaven is being built, and mansions and all the things there, He's been working on that for over 2,000 years. I mean, just believe there's going to be some beautiful mansions to be seen and to be had. And as we consider that there, but he's standing there waiting for the Father to say, "Son, go get your bride." And that's when the rapture will occur. And so as that is really one of the next events that's going to take place, we need to be ready. I believe, most everybody I see in here this morning has made a profession of faith, but if you have any questions at all about that, it is something you don't want to be caught off guard. You don't want to be caught out of place. You want to be ready. You want to have accepted Jesus Christ and his completed work on the cross and the resurrection, and placing our faith in him, and that's how we gain eternal life. And so the new heaven, new earth, all those things are promised to come. All of that will be on us there. So as we consider there the fact of that final C, the consummation there, as we just kind of getting through this with the timing of when things happen. Let's go back and look at just one real quick thing here. The world's view, as we talked about with creation, the world likes to look at it as a big bang. It all happened out of nothing. It would happen they think about 14 billion years ago, and the earth was formed about 4.5 billion years ago. That's their belief in things. That's what they've come up with as they were left to come up with their own way of doing things. And so as we as Christians, they always like to, those that are in evolution, those that are into things that way, they always like to say Mother Nature. Mother Nature. We hear there all the time. I'm guilty of it myself. I will say it myself. I've been trying my hardest to change my vocabulary. It's creation. Okay, if we are Christians and we want to use, and I don't want to get into like semantics and get into like, if you don't use the right word, you're not the right person. You're not right with, you're just not right with God if you're not using the right words. But we do need to think about those things a little bit. We fall into that. We will say Mother Nature quite often. Boy, Mother Nature's mad today. Mother Nature's mad. Well, creation implies that there's a creator. If we believe there's a creator, I like to use the word creation. I would challenge you to consider that yourselves. And if you use the other terminology there, then you can change your terminology. And if you hear me say Mother Nature, then just slap me upside the head. That'll work too. Yeah, okay. Brother Ross is taking that on as a challenge. I'll have to be careful when I'm around him just to keep my words straight. Again, with their idea, the 14 billion years ago, 4.5 billion years for the Earth's formation, and then people evolved from ape-like creatures, they believe, somewhere in Africa. So that's what they believe to have happened, and all that happened within millions of years. And again, if that's the way it happened, then we have no creator. There was no creator in the middle of any of that. We'll discuss a little more about things there, but when you get into the corruption, we've talked about this as a little more review than anything. But when we talk about corruption, the world's view is that sin doesn't exist. They're just people who've learned bad behavior. Now, I think as Christians and everything, we can learn bad behavior. We do learn bad behavior, but there's an underlying sin with it because our pride wants us to do what we want to do, and we don't want to listen to anybody's authority. And that's where our bad behavior, the learned bad behavior, comes from, is we don't want to listen to anybody. I know that's one of the biggest things I struggle with. I don't like to listen to anybody. I can't help it. It's in me. Sin doesn't exist. Death and struggle and disease, they just always existed. Anger is not a sin, but a response or some type of disorder. Okay, that's how the world tries to fix these problems. They'll give you a disorder, and then they'll give you some medication to help you with it, and not saying there isn't some medications out there that help certain people. I'm not taking that away from anything. But the fact is that a lot of the problems we fight are the things that we bring upon ourselves because of our sin. Again, I've mentioned this before. Adultery, things like that. The world looks at it's just a fling. It's an affair. It's a response. It's just a holdover from our evolutionary process we've been through. That's just a holdover. The fact that somebody can't be monogamous and can't be faithful to one partner. That's just evolution, just working itself out there, and no need to really worry about that. That's not harming anybody as long as everybody's in agreement with it. It's not a real problem. Okay. That's the way the world looks at it. Fact is that they'll look at us as being just a blank slate. We start off as a kid as a blank slate, and we just learn that bad behavior. That's just the way they like to look at it. When it came to the catastrophe, we talk about the flood. Um, they like to acknowledge that there was some flooding that happened in time, but they don't look at it as being more than a localized event. They don't look at it as being a worldwide event. It just was localized, just some things here or there, and all these rock formations that they've discovered that can be proven or can be explained by the flood. All that was just millions of years of things happening, and so therefore no need to consider there was a worldwide flood. When it comes to the confusion of the races, the different races just evolved over these millions of years, and that's just the way it all happened. And so with the confusion that way, when you get rid of all those things, and you don't have sin you have to pay for, and you don't have sin you have to deal with, then there is no reason for a Christ. There is no reason for the cross. There's no reason for a Savior. But they can't dismiss the existence of Jesus Christ. As Pastor said so many times, he's one of the most written about people. He is a historical figure, even if they don't want to acknowledge him as God. He is an historical figure that they can't dismiss. So what they go into is, being a good teacher. He was a prophet for Israel. He was a good teacher. He was a good man. He was all these things that way. Because you know what? They really like that don't judge thing that he talked about. Don't judge. So that's what you're not supposed to judge me. Jesus taught you that, and that's the only thing they really know about him. Don't judge me, because I am who I am. What does that sound like? Sounds like pride. Just sounds like somebody wrapped up in themselves and not wanting to listen to any authority. And that's just who we are left to ourselves. That's just what we are when we're left to ourselves. So they do like that don't judge thing, but no, the Son of God, no, I'm not accepting him as being Son of God. And it doesn't help that there are so many religions out there that have Jesus Christ confused as to who he is. A certain group of people believe he became a god. There's others out there who Jesus was the Son of God, but you also need somebody else to intervene for you. There's all these different religions out there who confuse who the Son of God is, and that doesn't help when you're trying to talk to people out there in the world, because they're confused. The world of Christianity has confused them just because of so many different religions out there. So if he wasn't the Son of God, then he definitely didn't rise from the dead. He might not even died on the cross. That's what one of the arguments they make, that he just swooned and then he recovered after he was laid in the cool grave there, and he was able to recover and was able to make his way out. And so they're all happy to have a Jesus, just not the Christ, not Jesus Messiah. They're all okay with Jesus being here, just not being the Son of God. And again, when it comes to the consummation, we consider what a sad existence if people look at themselves. Well, there's no soul. There's nothing special about me. There's nothing that is going to last forever. There's nothing about me that will live on for eternity. That I have no soul, and when I die, I just cease to exist. And we're just continuing to evolve. We'll continue to evolve into something better, something different, something whatever. If the world doesn't destroy, if we don't destroy ourselves in the process, because that's what we're doing. We got to save the earth, because it's the only earth we have. Again, I'm not in a good mood, so I'll stay off of that. So as we consider this is the world's view of things, boy, I'd much rather have the biblical view of the world. I'd much rather have the biblical view. Exactly right. A lot less faith to have our view than it has to have their view, because no matter how far back they go, even into the 14 billion years, they can't even say where that started from. And I don't know. It's just so hard to see, as people are trapped in this, as they're confused by this, as they're really a willing participant in this. I'll just go to hell because all my friends will be there. Just all of my friends are going to be there, and we're just going to have a party. No party in hell. There will be no party in hell. And so as we come to that point of consummation there, and we consider the secular group there, the worldly view, the end of the world for them. They consider things and say the universe will just gradually grow cold and die, or it will begin to contract and squeeze back together into a big crunch, and it may just be another big bang that happens from that. Everything's out here, and then it contracts back together into a small point. When it's all into a small point, there's so much matter and energy in one place, it explodes again, and the whole process starts over again. That's one of their theories. Okay. So possibly spawning another big bang and possibly another new universe that happens there. These views are completely incompatible with the biblical view of history, and each of us must decide whether to trust God's account of the history of the universe or man's ideas. I mean, we can't, as I said it the last time we were together, and thinking about Genesis 1 to 11 and how crucial that is to our faith in Christianity, our faith in Jesus Christ. Very much important to understand that Genesis 1 through 11 is right, and it's literal, and it's what God put down on paper for us to understand as much as we can understand it. So if we have any of the other views that I talked about there, just completely incompatible with biblical understanding of things. So most everyone we meet, they won't hold. Most everybody you'll meet. I mean, you gotta have this. You gotta have the percentage on one end, the percentage on the other end, but the majority in the middle there. They won't hold a complete secular holding of things, and they won't hold a complete biblical view of things. Okay, does that make sense? A lot of people find themselves in the middle. A lot of people are willing to kind of acknowledge. Some people are willing to say this, but there's that group. There's probably a militant group on each end of things. I say militant because even those of us who believe that the Bible literally states what happened there, you got to be careful not to be so militant about it. You're poking people in their God-given eyeballs, Dr. Garris would say. Telling those truths without loving them is cruel. I mean, truth without love is cruel. And so, but most everybody you meet are not going to be completely biblical or completely secular. So there are so many people who blend the secular ideas. You think about when Paul, when they were in Greece and they went, and there was the altar to the unknown God. Okay, the fact that they were just like, well, we know about this Greek god and this Greek god and this 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 god, and then there's one that's unknown and we don't know who he is, but we got an altar to him. And so he was able then to take that time and teach them who that God was. You take the Indian people and their thousands and millions of gods that they have, they're willing to put their faith in it. Okay, somebody comes up with a new god, we got to have a shrine to them, so that's one of the things they do there. Other religious worldviews, other religious people, they take that and they blend all this stuff together, the spiritual and the secular, and we start blending that stuff together, and that makes a milkshake that I don't want to eat. I don't want to drink. I mean, it just Susanna is always we're always kind of fun with her because when it comes to like Dairy Queen Blizzards, who likes Dairy Queen Blizzards? All right, people, who doesn't like Dairy Queen Blizzards? Okay, there's a couple of people. Yeah, Susanna's one. All right, you're gonna jump in the boat with her, aren't you? Okay, that's good. That's fine. Now let me ask. I know her reason. What's your reason for not liking? I'm not going to mention your name, but she looks a lot like Kelly Lockard. What's your reason for not liking Dairy Queen Blizzards? Okay. So it's just a flavor. You just don't like the flavors. Okay. Her objection is that she doesn't like her ice cream with stuff in it. Okay, all right. So now Miss Rose has jumped on board here with Susanna. Now that she's heard this, okay. So everybody just like smooth, creamy ice cream all the time, right? They don't want anything else but I know Brother Flip, he just gets vanilla. That's what I've heard, right? Vanilla ice cream for Brother Flip. And I was thinking about you last night. I had some vanilla ice cream with a brownie that Alyssa made, and I was thinking Brother Flip would be liking this vanilla ice cream. But I do like Blizzards. They had one here, the Nutter Butter one, the little peanut butter cookie look at the little peanut looking cookie Nutter Butter. Why are there two Nutter Butters? You know, there's two Nutter Butters. You got the one that looks like a peanut. It's two halves of a cookie with peanut butter filling in the middle. Maureen, you don't care at all because it's got peanut butter. The other one is wafer with peanut butter in the middle. They're both made by Nabisco, and they're both called Nutter Butter. I have not figured out why both of them are called Nutter Butter, but you can go look it up. You can see that. So, but they took the one with like the cookie one, and they crunched that up and put it in the Blizzard. Boy, that was really good. I like that one. I don't know if you can still get it or not. But when we mix all this stuff together with the secular and the spiritual and put all that together like that, it doesn't come out tasting good like a Blizzard. Okay, it's munching on some stuff. You're crunching, you're taking a bite, and it's like, I think that might have been a cicada because we're about ready to turn them into some type of food too, I believe, because they're about to show up. But again, other religious worldviews, you'll encounter them along the way. And just as you said, just you pointed to, everyone has faith. God has given every man the measure of faith. It's where we place that faith. It's what we do with that faith. They will take that and place it into their worldviews or their mixture of views. But there's really only two ways to look at the world: God's word to start to understand truth. If we don't take God's word for it, we're going to have a hard time understanding truth. Or again, as we want to follow man's ideas, I never want to follow man's ideas. I just that just always scares me. I know how many mistakes I make every day, and I've always said this: I hate mistakes, especially my own. And I do that. I'll say that at work. I hate mistakes. And then when I found out I made a mistake, I just tear myself apart over it. So I don't want to follow man's ideas because man is too flawed. And so those ideas can either be the secular ideas, or it can be the spiritual ones, the religion that man has come up with. Religion man has decided that's what they're going to follow. So when we come across the people we're dealing with, we need to help recognize when they've taken their faith, when they've taken their worship, and they've misplaced that. We need to help them understand. And as I said before, it has to be done in love. If we don't help people to understand things in love, if we don't help them to see, and again, there are going to be those you'll never be able to convince. No matter what you do, you'll not be able to convince. But the fact is, it's the attempt, it's the trying, it's making them accountable, and trying to help them to see. That's the end of this lesson here. And again, next time we are together, we will be talking about the going back to creation and looking at some different aspects with that.